Welcome back to the Gentlemanly Things. Here we are for our fourth episode, and I am so excited to bring you our first guest. In this episode, we're going to welcome Luke Mays from the House of Dormeuil, one of the world's premier fabric mills. We get into so much in this episode beyond clothing. Luke is a master of philosophy, practices martial arts, is well-traveled, and brings a really interesting perspective on what he believes to be the gentlemanly things. Don't forget to subscribe so that each week you can join in these conversations where we explore the art of being a gentleman one conversation at a time. I'm your host, Brian Lipstein, and this is The Gentlemanly Things. It's not about how to be a gentleman, but it's about the art of living like one. And we explore that one conversation at a time. Enjoy this conversation with Luke Mays. Luke, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, Brian. Thanks for having me. Yes, I work for the House of Dormeuil. I've worked for the family for 30 years. When I'm not talking to my clients about luxury fabric, I teach karate and I write books and I look after my two very young children. So on the subject of luxury, I'm in a garage, which isn't a very luxury place, but for me, it's luxury because it's quiet. I have a sleeping 1-year-old and a 2.5-year-old in the living room. So for me, this is luxury because it's special. And what I want to talk to you all about today is what is special and what is luxury and what does that mean and how does that affect our life as a gentleman living a life of luxury?
Absolutely. Yeah. And Luke, as we were talking about coming onto the show, right? Our tagline for the show is this isn't a show about how to be a gentleman, but it's about the art of living like one. And we explore that one conversation at a time. So I'm really excited to get into this conversation with you and really kind of talk a little bit more in depth about kind of the behind the scenes of the fabric world and why fabrics matter and how they differ with one another. But also fascinated to have you bring your experiences into the show as well. And we both have a background in training in martial arts. So we've spent many hours discussing that and just traveling the world and the unique experiences we've both been very fortunate to have. So yeah, that's we got a lot to cover today. We're looking forward to spending the next 20, 30 minutes digging in and diving a little bit deeper. So, and I love that you pointed out the garage. Your kids are the cutest, and I can imagine that getting a little bit of time away from them just for quiet is luxury. But I know that you miss them every second you're away from them. So we appreciate the time that you're taking and spending with us here away from your family, which I know is very important to you. So thank you for that, and thanks for the expertise you bring and the friendship over the years. Let's jump into it. So just give us the 30-second to a minute or so history. How did you get to where you are today? Where did you start? What were some of the milestones along the way? And kind of what are some of those memorable moments that helped you jump from one level to the next in terms of elevating your life and the things that matter to you?
Yeah, I left high school and joined the Air Force, and I flew Strike Masters in the Royal New Zealand Air Force. And when I left the Air Force, I really didn't want to become a commercial pilot, so I was a bit stuck. And I was very lucky to get a job as a warehouse guy for a guy called Trevor Hookway, who was still Dormeuil's agent in New Zealand. And I was working for Trevor full-time. I was in the Army part-time for 5 years as a territorial officer, carrying on that military tradition and life as a gentleman, even though you're holding a rifle and jumping out of planes. And I enjoyed it, and I resonated towards selling Dormeuil fabric in particular because I was born in England, and this is beautiful fabric made in England with New Zealand wool. And there I was in New Zealand selling this beautiful product. Ashley Dormeuil came to visit New Zealand. Dominic Dormeuil's older brother, who's actually since passed away. Dominic Dormeuil is now the sole owner of the House of Dormeuil. He's the great-great-grandson of Jules Dormeuil, and his son Victor is going to be the next owner of the company. And Ashley said to me, Ashley Dormeuil, Dominic's older brother, said, "I like what you're doing in New Zealand. I'd like to see what you can do in America." And Ashley Dormeuil moved to America in 1996 from Paris, and I moved to Dormeuil, New York, from New Zealand in 1996. I thought it was going to be maybe a year. I'm still here. So it's been a wonderful journey, and I love it because I get to deal with a beautiful product and wonderful people who make beautiful things for other important people who are beautiful and want to elevate their life experience through how they present themselves to the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So thank you for sharing that journey. So almost 30 years with the company, right? Probably over 30 years almost in the United States. But
yeah, I was with Hawes and Frere for 4 years before that. So it's well over 30 years selling Dormeuil fabric.
So tell us, you kind of hinted at Dormeuil. They're still family owned, right? And I believe, if I count the generations correctly, currently fifth, entering potentially the sixth soon.
Correct. And Hunter's working for the company already. So yeah, sixth generation is in the house.
That in itself is an amazing story. Entrepreneurship, many companies don't survive past 2 to 3 years. Here we're talking about 150 plus years of history, and transitioning successfully from one generation to the next often doesn't survive. So to be able to do that now 5 times going on 6 is an incredible story. But let's get into why Dormeuil is luxury. There's fabrics from all sorts and of companies and corners of the world and many, many different names that produce cloth. In my mind, there's really kind of 5 stellar mills that are the cream of the crop, and Dormeuil is certainly one of those 5. We have a great relationship with Henry Davidson with Dormeuil. We certainly appreciate the relationship. But tell us just fabric. Like, let's educate people on what makes a luxury fabric luxury versus another fabric which maybe doesn't carry the same quality, performance, or other things in it. So what are some of the things behind the scenes that people don't know about?
Yeah, the most important thing is it's a family-owned business. I always start with that because the moral compass of any company can very rarely be traced back to one individual. This is the world we're living in. Dominic Dormeuil owns Dormeuil. It starts and finishes with a human being who's absolutely committed to sustainability, looking after the animals, looking after the people that look after the animals, and looking after the land where those animals graze. That, to me, is more compelling than all of the other technical aspects I'll share with you, because it starts with someone's ethical view on the world. And that transcends every step of the process. And I've always said to Brian, quite frankly, if there was a more ethical cloth house in the world, I'd be working for them. So Let's start about what that means. Okay, that's all very well and good for us and for the philosophy, but what does that mean in terms of the finished product? Well, it starts with a selection of fiber. We only use fiber from the neck and the flank of the sheep. So straight away, we're cooking with filet mignon. Rather than piece dyeing, which is very quick, very efficient, less expensive, or yarn dyeing, where the yarn is dyed in a core, we actually dye fiber and color blend fiber into yarn. Very time consuming, very expensive, but that's how you make the best fabric in the world. That's how you get beautiful color complexity. That's how you get fabric that looks expensive because it is expensive. It's expensive fabric. We then weave our fabric very, very tightly using two-ply weft construction. In each of our designs, we make typically 4 70-yard bolts, so about 280 yards. So enough fabric in the world for 70 suits in that particular design. And then we finish the fabric using Yorkshire water on both the front and back. Pure, light, crystalline water with pH neutral, no acid, no alkaline. You can only get that water at one place, and that's in the north of England. So all of these steps in the process, a very specific decision is made by the owner of the company to not just make the fabric adequate, not just to make the fabric better than adequate, but to make the fabric magnificent. And we're in the business of making men feel magnificent so they can be better gentlemen as a result. And it starts with how you wear, what you wear, and the fabric that your garments are constructed with.
I love that. And there's so much technicality that you just mentioned that I understand because I've had years of education with you. So let's say we're going to pop an image up on the screen here of what top dye looks like. What we're talking about is the fiber being dyed and then the fiber being blended before it's spun into yarn. So all the colors that you see in the fiber and then the finished color that you see in the fiber next to this is a method of blending the color, right? And so I always say it's like an oil painter mixing paints to get the perfect color. And that's all happening with the raw fiber before it gets spun into yarn. So we're going to give an image of that and let people see, what that color looks like. It's incredible to see it. It is, I know I've been to the mills with you where they do this and it's a trade secret. So we weren't able to capture video of that happening. And we highly respect the what needs to stay, proprietary, to the mill. But even just seeing the idea of what top dye is in the light box was really fascinating. So, understanding that you're creating color by using other color, and that makes the ultimate color you get more complex. It makes it more rich. There's more depth to it. And based on the way the light hits it, it may change and you'll pick up different undertones based on what you put behind it with a shirt, a tie, the other accessories. It may pull out different colors every time you wear it and have just a slight different feel, slight different personality when you put something next to it. Yeah, that's a technicality that you almost have to see it. And we're going to bring some of that, on some B-roll here with the show. But I find it so fascinating. So I'm glad you talked about that point. And then all the way through the finishing of the cloth. The water that's used only being found in one source is incredible. And I think, remind me again, because I know we visited this location together, but at the finishing mill, how deep, do you remember how deep they had to dig?
It goes down a mile. There's a borehole under the mill. And if you observe finishing fabric, you need a large quantity of water. Very important that there's no pollutant runoff. We use 100% natural soap and water that's drawn up from a mile deep hole underneath the mill.
Yeah, that's an incredible depth.
You can't have a mill that finishes without this enormous supply of water. And even when it's discharged after the finishing process, it's coming out as crystalline water with natural soaps.
Yeah, that's really amazing. So, and finishing is really like the polishing stage of the cloth, right?
It is. That's when you realize the potential of all of the steps that have been made. But I was going to say your analogy of an oil painting is a very good one, because you imagine piece dyeing where a pre-woven fabric is dyed. That's a little bit like a watercolor. You'll get some pretty things, but you'll get dark, light, very monochromatic finish, just like a watercolor. Watercolors are quite pretty, but they're one color that's then used to express light and shade and darkness and lightness, but it's one monochromatic color. Then yarn dyeing is like an acrylic painting. The color's more vivid than a watercolor. It's more precise. It's better quality in terms of fabric construction, and you'll get better color consistency and color fastness. So that's like an acrylic painting. But top dyeing is an oil painting, and it brings this depth upon depth. In one navy blue suit, for example, in a solid navy, you might have anthracite, like a silver in there. You might have a beautiful, rich burgundy in there. So when you look at that, there's a reason why a gentleman wearing a Henry Davidson navy blazer walks into the Union League and people go, wow, that's a good-looking jacket. It's a navy jacket. It's just a navy jacket, but it isn't just a navy jacket. That's the point. You can get just a navy jacket from Suit Supply for $400. It might fit okay. It might do the job okay, but it's not the same. And we're in the business of really elevating, very philosophically, your daily life experience. Do you want to make it through the day, be adequate, or embrace the day and be magnificent? And that's the business we're in.
Yeah. And So one of the things I introduced in our first episode was this concept of time and intention, right? And from the richest man on earth to the poorest person, we're all on the same playing field with having 24 hours in a day. And to me, the art of living like a gentleman is choosing where to spend your time and choosing with intentionality. And I think, the House of Dormeuil with their fabrics, right? Choosing very specifically the farms they work with to raise the sheep and raise the fiber, all the way through that finishing step that you're talking about, where they're very intentionally choosing how to finish it, what the front of the fabric is going to feel like, what the back of the fabric is going to feel like, using that water from that one very specific source, and every decision in between, from top dye to spinning to weaving, to get that fabric that it's not just a fabric. It feels different. It drapes differently. It looks different when you compare it side by side with something that didn't have that time and intention put into it. So I asked this question, right? Fabric is fabric. So what is the threshold that makes fabric luxury and therefore a gentlemanly thing? What needs to be present in the final piece of fabric and everything that goes into it to I would say, be considered that level?
I think it's about an appreciation for what goes into something. There are many different analogies. Pepe Van Winkle, if you drink bourbon, is a very special bourbon. Maker's Mark is also very nice. When you drink Pepe Van Winkle, you remember the last time you drank it and who you're with. Does it taste better, or that's a personal preference, but it's special because there's an appreciation at some level as to why that bottle of Pepe Van Winkle is what it is. It's because there's a gentleman called Julian Van Winkle, who is the grandson of Pepe, who physically puts his life and soul into that product. So too with the House of Dormeuil. When you have an appreciation for all the care that goes into something that's driven by passion, it's not driven by profit, it's not driven by a commodity, it's driven by someone elevating something. And it's the same thing we experience when we watch Messi or Ronaldo, whatever you want to choose as your best football player. When you watch someone who's excellent at something, you can appreciate and enjoy someone elevating an experience. When you go to the play and watch an incredible actor, when you go to a restaurant and eat incredible food and you can appreciate what went into serving that dish, it ceases to be food and starts to be an experience. It ceases to be a product and starts to be an elevated life experience that makes you a better husband. It makes you a better brother. It makes you a better friend because you're living on a different level. And I know that's getting quite philosophical about it, but ultimately that's what we're about. We're about delivering something that is special. A gentleman wearing a Dormeuil suit or a Dormeuil jacket is wearing something special that's made uniquely for them. And the difference in the branding, if you look at a Brioni, Hermes, Tom Ford, Stefano Ricci, these are all beautiful brands, and we do a lot of business with them, and we have a great deal of respect for them. The difference with our business with Henry Davidson, for example, is we're helping to build something that projects someone's own personal brand. It's not about Tom Ford. Tom Ford's a wonderful designer. I'm not a 23-year-old swimmer with broad shoulders and a narrow waist. I can wear Tom Ford. It's a bit of fun. But to me and for you, I believe that your own personal brand is more important than that. And when you embrace that and invest in that and celebrate that, you walk differently. You talk differently. You're experiencing life on a completely different level of elevation.
Yeah, and so what I'm hearing is there's a certain set of values that are set and adhered to, right, and followed to create what the vision is of the final product. From Dormeuil, from our customers to the final product that they ultimately wear, and it's not necessarily about the person behind the brand. It's not about me, the owner of Henry Davidson. It's not about Dominic Dormeuil, the designer of Dormeuil. It's about bringing a set of standards from start to finish that align with ultimately the client that I'm working with and designing for, that are going to really elevate him and showcase his values through the way he projects himself.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It's about being authentic. And what we hope to do is listen and understand your life, what you need, how you present yourself to the world, and then elevate that. That's a different construct to, we want to sell you something. And for me, the first time I experienced this, I'll give you a story with my own personal experience. I've been working for the House of Dormeuil for 10 years, and I always liked nice clothes. And I still was understanding what the difference was between wearing nice clothes and wearing just clothes that did the job. I had a kilt made, and the kilt was made in Scotland, and it featured my grandmother's tartan. She's a Douglas. It was a military Douglas tartan, which reflected my own military background. And when I wore that kilt in a formal setting, I just walked differently. I talked differently, I acted differently, and I suddenly realized that I was wearing something that represented me. That's a different thing to just wearing a kilt because it's kind of fun. There's a different attitude that you get. Now, the question is, why can't we spend every day like that? Not wearing a kilt every day, but why can't we express ourselves with an authentic, true self-image based on the clothes we wear?
And I think we can. I mean,
yeah.
we certainly have the opportunity to. It's about choosing to do so, right? And I think, I think we kind of get to answering the question I just asked. What's that threshold, right? And maybe that threshold is making the choice to say, nobody's telling me I have to show up this way. I don't have to show up dressed in a sport coat every day, or dressed in a suit every day, or have a tie on every day. And even if it's not tailored clothing, if it's knitwear, if I'm wearing a sweater or a knitted Henley in the summer and a pair of shorts, right? There's casual and there's sloppy, or there's casual with intention and not sloppy, right? And put together and thoughtful, and, understanding that by crossing that threshold of choosing to want to feel authentic every day and want to feel like whatever you have on, whether it's dressy or dressed down, is authentically you, and it's special, and it gives you that feeling of showing up differently. That's the threshold to me. That a gentleman doesn't have to be in a suit every day, but the gentleman that shows up relaxed and comfortable is going to have a different air about him than, when he's doing it with intention, and when he knows he's doing it with authenticity, than the guy that just went shopping at the local store and you picked something up off the rack because it was convenient and fit a budget that he thought was reasonable.
Yeah, let's drill down even more on this, because we're going to get into a bit of Budo martial arts philosophy now. Let's talk about respect. We all want respect, right? We want respect from our kids. We want respect from our spouse. We want respect from our team that we manage. We want respect from our bosses. We want respect from our community. But here's the rub. Respect is something you give. It's not something you get. And we're in a conundrum because we want it, but it doesn't start with other people. It starts with us. The best way we can project and build respect in the world is to respect the environment we're in. And that starts with putting on a jacket. And I've had this conversation with people who have been very successful, particularly in San Francisco, where I travel a little bit, who have been successful in the .com world, who have been successful in technology. And the approach is, well, I'm the boss. I can turn up in a sweatshirt. I don't really like dressing. And that's fine. What is that saying to the staff? How is that respecting the team who are turning up in a suit and tie and are looking for leadership and guidance? How does that respect the partner for a dinner out? Not much, right? When you start having that conversation with those people, things change quickly. And all of a sudden they realize that it's not about them really, in terms of, it's not about, hey, I'm comfortable. Do you respect the people who work hard for you? Do you respect, and people will say, Mark Zuckerberg, here's a good example. When he turned up to Congress, he's wearing a suit. Of course he's wearing a suit because he respects that environment. That's a classic case in point of someone who's got all the money in the world, can dress in sweats. But when you are in a position where you want to respect the environment you're in, there's one way to do it, and that's to present yourself in a respectful manner. But again, as Brian said, in a true, authentic manner, representing your best self. And that's what we're in the business of doing, helping men do that.
Yeah. And I always, I share with clients too, when you dress a certain way, when you dress with intention, you're going to notice that people treat you differently. And our corporate guarantee is compliments guaranteed. Over the years, we feel so strongly with all the feedback we've gotten of clients we've worked with who have never received a compliment on their clothing, coming back to us saying, I just wore my jacket out of your store. I stopped at the local Wawa convenience store to grab a lunch and a soda, and the person checking me out commented on the sport coat that I was wearing. It's the first time anybody's ever complimented me, but they said, "Oh, what a nice sport coat. You look really nice today." Complete stranger taking time out of their day to recognize you, right? So people are going to treat you differently when you show up that way. But the flip side of it is you start to treat other people differently. So I love what you were just talking about there is respect is given, not gotten, right?
And you're respecting the environment, even walking into Wawa.
Of course.
We had this wonderful thing right in the middle of COVID. I think you remember, Brian, we had this meeting, like, what are we going to do with all this time? What can we do to inspire people? What can we do to help people get through this? And I live in Santa Barbara, which is a very casual place. And that day I got into a 3-piece suit with a tie and I went to Bristol Farms. 20 people stopped me. What's going on? Wow, you look great. And it wasn't about me doing this. It was just like, who doesn't want to bring that to the world?
Yeah. I remember another guy in COVID wrote an article about his superpower, right? And his secret superpower was actually dressing up in a suit. He was in sales, and he said, I put a suit on and I sat down and I had the best sales day I've ever had. And I still have that article saved on my computer. I think it came through the Entrepreneurs Organization Network, if I remember correctly. But I shared that with my team, and in COVID, it was, well, nobody's dressing up. So how do you differentiate yourself, right? But it's not even just differentiating yourself for the point of standing out, right? Standing out for the right reasons, but it's the way you show up to the world. It's the way you feel. It's the way you act. It's the way other people are going to treat you, but you also start to treat other people differently. You start to give more respect for that time, for that environment, for that space. And it becomes you. It's your brand, right? So I love that. That's a great story. I actually don't remember if I heard that story about you just, hey, I'm going to put on a 3-piece suit today, walk out to the local convenience store.
It was a pinstripe suit. It was very like East Coast. I just thought, I'm just going to go out there and do it. And I polished my shoes and I just went and did it. And I thought it was good for me because I needed to kind of wake up. And it was, it just shed a bit of positive light in the world at the time. I was going to ask, can you remember how you felt that day? Can you remember the feeling of thinking, all right, I'm going to do this, but then, take me through the first 15 minutes, like not 15 minutes, but what are the highlights of the first 15 minutes of stepping out the door? How did that feeling evolve? Yeah, it was, first of all, is that too much? Because it was out of my comfort zone. I'm actually quite a shy person, believe it or not, but I just said, this is really important. It's important to do this. And it's not about me. It's about just shining some light out there because everyone was pretty miserable. And I thought, this is going to be fun, and I'm going to have some fun doing it. And I don't usually wear a suit when I'm on the West Coast anyway. I wear a jacket and tie. I mean, it's going to be 80 degrees today. So I thought, let's do it. And there was that wonderful feeling of, getting ready, getting dressed up, getting ready to be respectful, and getting ready to make an impression and make an effort for no other reason, just to bring a smile to someone's face.
Yeah, and you saw a lot of smiles that day. It sounds like, based on the comments that you got, the compliments as well. So yeah, no, it's I think it's an important conversation, and talking about being intentional with what you're doing, thinking about who your audience is going to be for the day, thinking about the message that you want to project to the world about who you are, and we do that through our clothing. And one of the things that, to kind of bring this back to fabric a little bit, and what some of the things you talked about translate to for the end user. We talk about the filet mignon of the clip, the fibers off the neck and the flank. Those are the longest fibers on the sheep's fleece. And when you use long fibers and you spin them in what we call two-ply, so we're double twisting the thread of the fiber, you get a fabric that performs better. It drapes with more cleanliness. It resists wrinkling. It holds its creases. It holds its shape. So, many people, I didn't understand it when I first got in this, but as the garment is created at every step of the way, so we're talking about 40 to 50 hours of time put into creating a garment. Probably every hour along the way, they're pressing that, they're ironing it, they're shaping it. So it's not just sewing fabric together and it creates this shape. You have to put heat and steam and moisture on it along the way, and you want something that has a memory to it. That's part of the benefits of the wool fiber being the really the cornerstone foundation of dress clothes. So yeah, these elements that people don't understand that go in behind the scenes, and really what I want to bring to light is, why does it matter to them at the end of the day? Well, it matters to them because they're going to have a cleaner drape, a crisper garment, something that's not going to need as much care from a dry cleaner over time when it's cared for correctly in their closet. And it does stand out against the other garments that are floating around on other people's shoulders, and it sets you apart. So,
and it continues to look that way. I think that's a really important criteria. It's not about having a garment that you'll have for 20 years, although you can, because the styles change. But you're going to have a garment you can wear a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, and it doesn't look old, because the integrity of if you look at the difference between two plies in the weft and a single ply in the weft, you've got 25% more stuff in the fabric. So it's not going to feel so soft and drapey, but it's going to have that beautiful finish. It's going to have that beautiful drape. Another random anecdotal story was being in London and flying Virgin, and I'm a United guy, and flying Virgin, I was kind of taking a number like everyone else and sort of had no status. Not that that's important, but just it's nice to get on the plane early and kind of get yourself settled. So I was kind of in with the rest of the crew, and that's fine. I got my bags, I'm wearing my suit. And all of a sudden I hear this voice, "Excuse me, sir, I'll take you over here." And I look over, and there's this girl like signaling me, and I'm like, "What?" And she's in the first class check-in area. And I kind of pointed to where I was going, which was to join the line. She said, "Come." It was only because I was wearing a suit. It had nothing to do with anything else. I just looked like someone who respected the environment, that took flying seriously. Everyone else is in, shorts and flip-flops. And guess what? They joined the line. She said, "Come over here, sir. We'll look after you." Because the communication that she received was, here's someone who could probably use a bit of help, who actually looks like they've taken care to dress up and be respectful, so I'm going to look after them. So, and I wasn't going for that. It just happens.
Sure.
And again, that's just a small example of what it means to show respect for your environment, because you get the rewards of that.
I'm going to put a disclaimer out there that you're not going to get that treatment every time. But you do hear about this happening, right? And in today's world of travel, this is a whole nother conversation we could be here for another hour talking about, and I won't go down this rabbit hole very far, but in the way people respect airports and airplanes these days, it's some of the most horrendous sights that you see, and you wonder, well, how did anybody walk out of their house thinking that this was okay just because they're getting on an airplane and they want to be in their mind comfortable, right? You can be just as comfortable in tailored clothing, in a sport coat, in a suit, again, when it's made the right way and it's made for you. I'm just as happy to put on this sport coat today as I would be a t-shirt. And I'm just as comfortable, but I feel better. I look better. I perform better because I'm elevating my look, and I know I'm putting it together with thought and intention. So, it's if you really want to stand out in an airport and get some special treatment, try dressing up to travel on a plane, and maybe that'll happen to you, but maybe not. But you at least are giving yourself a much better chance of getting a little bit of extra special treatment, in that situation, in that environment. So, and that's a neat story. It's I can't say it's happened to me yet, but one day I'm sure it will. And I've heard many of other people that have been given special treatment because of showing up looking respectful of the environment and dressed for the part.
Even when you step on the plane and I'm not flying first class, the first thing, if I'm holding my jacket, let me grab your jacket and hang it up.
Yep.
Thank you very much. That's nice.
So, well, fantastic. I think this was a lot of fun. Talking about cloth and getting out well beyond cloth. Kind of some of the other elements of living like a gentleman and the time, the intentionality, the respect. I think a huge takeaway for me is the reminder that we give respect. We don't get respect. I mean, you don't just get it without giving it. It will come back to you if you give it, but you have to give it first. If you're a leader, you have to respect the people you're leading and the time and their efforts to make your life what it is. I think all too often that gets forgotten today or overlooked, or we just say we're really, really busy and we didn't even think about it, right? But if you put that at the forefront, everything else kind of falls in line behind it. So that's an incredible thing.
Those old Budo tenets of the samurai, whether it's respect, whether it's loyalty, whether it's love, these are all the most precious things in life, but we've got to give them, because if we can't give them, we have no chance to get them. Trust. You have to give it. Otherwise, it doesn't exist in your life and you can't buy it.
Yeah. And you've hit on so many things that are our core values. Our core values I've talked about in a previous episode: be reputable, be extraordinary, be authentic, be learned. I think we've touched on elements of all four of those today. And I really appreciate the time you took to spend with me. I know, again, we talked about in the beginning, away from your two small children and your family and how important that is to you. And, just really appreciate your friendship over the years, our business partnership that we work together, so closely and still have the friendship on top of it. And then we get to do fun stuff like this as well. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And a quick plug, Happy Samurai is available on Amazon.
There you go. Yeah. Luke has written 2 books, both Happy Samurai and what's the second book?
Fearless Samurai.
The Fearless Samurai. And I believe you're working on a third, you told me recently.
Indeed,
is that right?
Daily Samurai.
Okay.
So it's a daily meditation on what it means to adopt the tenets of the samurai in modern day life.
Yeah. So one of the things on my future list is to write a book. And, certainly, Luke, you've done it not just once, but twice, and now working on a third. And, to find the time, make the time and have the reflections to, bring that out to the world and share with everybody is really incredible. So thank you again. Any closing words from you or about Dormeuil that you want to share?
No, I think we've covered a lot of the philosophy about what we're about. But I think getting out of one's comfort zone is really important. Most of the gentlemen that we deal with through our customers have already figured that out to make success of their life, but continue to do it. And whatever our comfort zone is, stretch it, build it, keep pressing, keep leaning in, and elevate yourself with how you present yourself to the world while doing that. And we'll be here to help.
Perfect. Thank you. And we look forward to Dormeuil continuing to be shepherded into its 6th generation as the next one is joining the company already, being groomed to take it over. And we'll hopefully visit with you again in the future. And maybe at that point, we'll talk about more precious fibers. It was good to cover the basis today, but we could have a whole conversation on cashmere and vicuña and silk and mohair and all the different fibers that go into wool that we'll do a deeper dive on next time. But again, Luke Mays, thank you for being here. Thank you for representing Dormeuil across all of North America. And we appreciate you guys joining us to listen in on this conversation. Don't forget, you please subscribe to us on any channel you're listening to, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Go and find our Instagram page and our Facebook page. Please leave us some comments, leave us some feedback. We'd love to hear what you're enjoying. We'd love to hear what you'd love to hear more about. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. With that being said, I'm Brian Lipstein, your host here at The Gentlemanly Things, the show not about how to be a gentleman, but the art of living like one. And we've really enjoyed exploring this conversation with Luke Mays from Dormeuil.